Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Well, thank you. It is great to be here this morning. And I thank so many of you in the middle of the day for taking time to come out. And these town hall meetings are starting to become the stuff of some real interest around the state. So let me just tell you how it'll work. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the topic that we are very concerned about bringing reform to. And we'll go through that topic a little bit, and then I'll stop. And we have a microphone, as you can see, set up right in the middle. And all of you can come and line up and ask questions about what I talk about or something else that's on your mind that you either want to hear my opinion on or you want to give me a hard time about or anything else that's on your mind. So I like these forums very much, and I'm really thrilled that in the middle of the day so many of you are willing to come out and attend and to listen to what myself and the Lieutenant Governor have to say about what we're doing. I'm thrilled the Lieutenant Governor is here with me today. And as you all could tell over the first 8 months of this administration, she is my partner in everything that we're trying to do in Trenton and has continued to work very hard in a number of different areas, but most of all in being a sounding board for me and a partner for me in what we're trying to accomplish. What I want to talk to you about today is, I think, the most critical fiscal issue that our state and the country has to face for the 21st century. Now, you might think I'm talking about our budget and state budgets across the country, which are important. And as you know, when I came into office in January, I was told by Governor Corzine we had a $500 million surplus. So what happens when you get to look at the books here for yourself? It turned out to be a $2.2 billion deficit that we had to try to fix in 5 months before the end of the fiscal year. And so we did. We impounded $2.2 billion in spending, and we balanced that budget without any new taxes or increased taxes on the people of the state. We then turned immediately to the current fiscal year budget, fiscal year 11 that we're in right now and have been in for about 2 months. And that had a projected $11 billion deficit. And we had to take some very aggressive steps very quickly and make some very difficult decisions, tough cuts on a whole bunch of different areas that touched almost every aspect of life in the state. But the one thing we said we weren't going to do was to raise taxes on the most overtaxed citizens in the United States. The New Jerseyans are the most overtaxed citizens in America. And so we were not going to do that. And so we had to make some tough decisions, and we made those decisions. And we balanced an $11 billion budget deficit without any new taxes or any increased taxes. And that's important, and it's the beginning of putting ourselves on the road to fiscal sanity. We cut real spending in this year's budget by nearly 9% over last year. It's real dollars reduced. And we're proud of that. But those problems and difficulties look like a speed bump compared to what I'm going to talk to you about now. And what I want to talk to you about now is our out-of-control pension system in New Jersey and our out-of-control health care benefit system for public employees in New Jersey. Let me first, before I talk about what our ideas are to solve this, let me put it in the context for you first, the size of the problem. The underfunding in the pension system as we stand here today for state and local government in New Jersey is conservatively $46 billion. $46 billion underfunded given the promises and obligations that previous governments have made to public employees in New Jersey. Now, there are some that will tell you that the big problem here is that state government over the last decade has not been making the contribution that it is supposed to make to the pension system, and that if the state would just resume making those payments, that this would solve the problem. The problem really is that the state has been paying its share. Well, that's part of the problem. There's no doubt about that. But don't let people fool you. If we started this fiscal year in making our full actuarial payment, which next year would be somewhere around $3.1 billion to the system in the regular budget year. And if we continue to make the required payments for the next 15 years, but made no other changes to the system, kept everything exactly the way it is now, that underfunding that I spoke to you about, that is $46 billion today, would grow to $85 billion. Now, what that tells you, and what it tells me, is that if all we do is continue to put more money into a broken and failed system, the broken and failed system will just swallow that money alive and get even hungrier for more. And we can't afford to continue down that path. And it gets even worse as the numbers go further and further out, because our state, like our country, is getting older, and more people will be drawing disproportionate benefits from what they put into the system. And so we've got a situation now where it's very clear to everybody that this is the problem. The system is broke. Are we making pension payments to people who are collecting pensions today? Of course we are. Will we be able to do that for a period of time going forward? Absolutely. And the system may not go broke if we did nothing, even during the time that I'm governor, if that's for another 3 years or for another 7 years. But it will continue to affect our ability to fund other programs in the state, to provide tax relief, because it will continue to eat more and more of our budget. And we'll be losing ground the entire time. And leave this problem in the $85, $95, $100 billion range for our children and our grandchildren. And to me, that's an extraordinary, irresponsible act. So, when the Lieutenant Governor and I were elected, we were not under the illusion that you sent us to Trenton to run a charm school. And I don't think we've disappointed you in any way so far. I believe that we were sent to Trenton in a state that has 700,000 more Democrats than Republicans, against an incumbent governor who spent 3 times more money than I did in the campaign last year, because a good number of New Jerseyans had decided that time was up and you needed to send someone down there who was going to tell you the truth and clean this mess up, no matter how much it hurt to have that done. And I will tell you that in my first 8 months as governor, I feel something like the guy who got an invitation to a party. And the invitation that I got said the party starts at 8 o'clock at night. But that the party really had started at noon. And that when I got there at 8 o'clock at night, there were a bunch of drunk people passed out on the floor, a whole bunch of empties laying around, broken dishes, and well, I showed up, so I got 2 choices: walk out or clean up. And we're going to clean up, because that's the job that you gave me and the obligation we made. I'm glad I got that applause. It may be the last I get as we now go into the less fun part of this conversation. If you can imagine something less than talking about $46 to $85 billion holes in a pension system, now we have to talk about our proposal to try to clean it up. Now, let me say first that I don't suspect there will be public employees anywhere in New Jersey who will be standing up and cheering for this proposal, at least not in a majority of them, unless they think about this. They can continue to bury their heads in the sand and say, this is what we were promised, and this is what we expect, and we shall not yield, we shall not negotiate, we shall not compromise. We will stand up and fight for what we were promised. That's a position you can take. But the pension will be gone. One need only look at what happened in the private sector, to General Motors and to Chrysler, and to see what can happen when people refuse to confront the fact that promises that were made in good faith or in not so good faith years ago get on a collision course with the realities of today's economy and the fiscal constraints that we have. And if you ignore it, the crash will happen, and then people will be left with nothing. I say to many public employees who argue with me about proposals like the ones I'm going to make and others, that you may hate me now, but 8, 9, 10 years from now, you're going to look back and say that it was this governor that saved your pension, that gave you an opportunity to have a retirement income rather than just sang a happy tune, got myself through a couple of elections and rode off into retirement, and left an even worse mess than the one I inherited for whoever the next man or woman is who takes this job. So here are some of the ideas. In 2001, without real explanation, and in my view, without any real common sense, the Republicans that controlled the state legislature at that time, along with an acting Republican governor, passed a 9% increase in the pension benefits for public employees, with no way to pay for it. During the go-go days of that time, when the stock market was flying, and everybody thought that things were going to last like that forever, they passed a 9% increase that had no basis in fact and was not negotiated. It was passed by the legislature and bestowed upon the special interests who represent public employees. It makes no sense. And so we propose, as the beginning of reforming this system, to take that away. There was no rationale for it in the first place. And while we can't take away that 9% that those folks have accumulated over the last 10 years, it's vested, they now have it, you can't take it from them. What we're saying is no more. Go back to the original pension calculation and get rid of that 9% increase. It made no sense, we got to get rid of it. Now, I'm not going to get too deeply into the weeds with all of you about the different pension systems, but let me just give you a quick overview. There's a number of different pension systems that we have to worry about in the state, specifically 5 different systems, and you'll recognize them right away. One is the public employee retirement system, and that is for most of the public employees that we have that are non-teaching and non-law enforcement. So state workers, municipal workers, or non-teaching, non-law enforcement. Second, we have the teachers' pension annuity fund. That's pretty self-explanatory. Third, we have the police and fire retirement system. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Fourth, we have the state police retirement system. Again, pretty self-explanatory. And last, we have the judicial retirement system, which is the one that covers judges in the state court system.